Welcome back to my channel, where real story takes its time. Let's get into it.
At the end of my company's year-end party, I came home to find my daughter collapsed at the door. My sister leaned against the wall, shrugging, just disciplined her. My parents stepped out cold. She deserved it. Shaking, I called for help. But when the medic saw my sister, she froze and whispered, "Ma'am, is that really your sister?" Because actually, the conference room sparkled with fairy lights and champagne glasses. On December 15th, everyone at Mir and Associates had dressed up for the annual celebration, and I stood near the window in my navy dress, watching snow drift past the downtown skyline. My phone buzzed 3 times in my clutch, but I ignored it. These events only happened once a year, and my boss had specifically mentioned wanting to discuss my upcoming promotion. Sarah, another drink. My colleague Jennifer appeared at my elbow with 2 flutes. I should probably head out soon. I glanced at my watch. 8:30. Amber's alone at home. Jennifer waved dismissively. "Isn't your sister staying with you? And your parents visited yesterday, right? She's fine." My sister Natalie had arrived from Portland 2 weeks ago, claiming she needed a break from her retail job. Our parents, Linda and George, had driven down from their retirement community in Florida to spend time with their granddaughter. The arrangement should have felt comforting. Instead, something had twisted in my stomach every morning when I left for work. Amber was 12, bright and sensitive, with her father's dark curls and my stubborn chin. After the divorce 3 years ago, David had moved to California for his new wife and rarely called. My daughter had learned to rely on herself, becoming quieter with each missed birthday call. The phone buzzed again. I pulled it out this time, seeing 3 missed calls from my home number. A text from Natalie Reed. "Everything under control. Don't rush." Something in those 5 words made my hands cold. I need to go. I set down my untouched champagne and grabbed my coat from the rack near the door. Jennifer called after me, but I was already in the elevator jabbing the lobby button. The descent felt endless. My heels clicked across the marble floor as I pushed through the revolving doors into the December night. Snow had started falling heavier, coating my hair and shoulders as I ran toward the parking garage. Traffic crawled through the slick streets. I gripped the steering wheel, taking side streets and alleys I normally avoided. The 20-minute drive stretched into 40. My phone sat silent in the cup holder, which somehow felt worse than another call. Our apartment building finally appeared, its brick facade covered in holiday decorations the landlord had installed last week. I abandoned my car in a visitor spot and sprinted toward the entrance, my heels slipping on ice-slick pavement. The elevator climbed to the 4th floor. The hallway stretched before me, our apartment door visible at the end. Something dark lay crumpled against it. I ran. Amber lay face down on the hallway carpet, one arm stretched toward the doorknob. Her favorite purple sweater was torn at the shoulder. Blood matted her dark curls on the left side of her head. "Amber." I dropped to my knees, my hands shaking as I touched her neck. A pulse. Thank God. Faint but steady. Her skin felt like ice. The apartment door swung open. Natalie leaned against the frame in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, arms crossed. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect ponytail. She looked utterly calm. "Oh, you're home." She examined her manicured nails. "Just disciplined her a bit." "What did you do?" I cradled Amber's head carefully, feeling the sticky warmth of fresh blood. My parents emerged from the living room behind Natalie. Linda wore her usual disapproving expression, lips pressed thin. George stood with his hands in his pockets, not meeting my eyes. "She deserved it," Linda announced. "The child has no respect. Talking back, refusing to do simple chores. We tried to help you raise her properly." "She's bleeding," I said, my voice cracking. "She's unconscious in the hallway." "Stop being dramatic." Natalie examined the door frame as if it held more interest than her niece's body. She fell. Kids fall all the time. My hands fumbled with my phone. I dialed 911, giving our address through chattering teeth. The dispatcher's calm questions helped focus my panic. "Yes, she's breathing. No, I don't know how long she's been unconscious. Please hurry." "You're overreacting," George muttered, making a scene like always. I ignored him, stripping off my coat to drape over Amber's still form. Her face looked so small against the dark carpet, lips tinged with blue. How long had she been out here? How many times had my phone buzzed while I sipped champagne and talked about promotions? The dispatcher stayed on the line, talking me through checking Amber's breathing again, making sure she stayed stable. 8 minutes felt like 8 hours. Sirens wailed in the distance. I stayed on the floor, one hand on my daughter's shoulder, willing her to open her eyes. Natalie had retreated into the apartment. My parents stood in the doorway like sentries, not offering help or comfort. Footsteps pounded up the stairwell. 2 paramedics emerged carrying equipment, a man and a woman in Navy uniforms. The woman took the lead, kneeling beside me with practiced efficiency. What happened? She pulled out a blood pressure cuff, wrapping it around Amber's thin arm. I just got home and found her like this. The words tumbled out. My sister said she disciplined her, but I don't know what that means. There's blood in her hair. She won't wake up. The male paramedic shone a light in Amber's eyes, checking pupil response. The woman palpated the back of my daughter's head carefully, her gloved fingers coming away crimson. Possible concussion. We need to stabilize her neck. They moved with synchronized efficiency, fitting a cervical collar around Amber's throat. Natalie appeared in the doorway again. The female paramedic glanced up from securing the collar, and her entire body went rigid. The blood pressure cuff slipped from her hands. Ma'am. She stared at my sister, all color draining from her face. Is that really your sister? Yes, Natalie. Why? The paramedic stood slowly, her partner looking up with confusion. She pulled me a few steps away, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Because actually, I treated a little girl 2 years ago. Same apartment building, different floor. 8 years old. Multiple bruises. Broken arm. The injuries didn't match the story the parents gave. She swallowed hard. The mother looked exactly like your sister. Same face, same hair, but she gave the name Victoria Chen. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's impossible. I never forget a face, she said quietly, especially in cases like that. CPS was called, but the family disappeared before the investigation concluded. Her eyes held mine. The father's name was Robert Chen. The girl was Emma. Natalie stood in the doorway watching us. Her expression remained neutral, pleasant, even like she was observing something mildly interesting on television. Check this out, the male paramedic said. He had lifted Amber onto the stretcher. He pulled back her torn sweater, revealing bruises along her ribs in various stages of healing. Yellow-green older ones mingled with fresh purple marks. Finger-shaped impressions circled her upper arm. These are defensive wounds, the female paramedic said, her voice hardening. And this bleeding is from blunt force trauma, not a fall. I want to ride with her. My legs felt unsteady. Of course, but ma'am, I need to report this. It's mandatory. She pulled out her radio. And you should know that if your sister is who I think she is, she's dangerous. Very dangerous. The ride to Mercy General passed in a blur of sirens and monitoring equipment. Amber remained unconscious, her face obscured by an oxygen mask. I held her cold hand and whispered apologies into the antiseptic air. They rushed her into emergency the moment we arrived. A nurse guided me to a waiting area with gray chairs and year-old magazines. I sat alone, my evening gown incongruous among the worried families in sweats and jeans. A doctor appeared after 30 minutes that felt like 30 years. Your daughter has a severe concussion and 3 cracked ribs. There's evidence of repeated trauma over several weeks. We've contacted Child Protective Services and the police. Will she wake up? The scans show no brain bleeding, which is good, but we're keeping her sedated for now to let the swelling reduce. She should regain consciousness within 24 hours. He sat in the chair beside me. Can you tell me what happened? I explained everything. Coming home from the party, finding Amber collapsed, my sister's casual cruelty. The words sounded insane as they left my mouth, my own family, my own sister. The doctor listened without interruption, making notes. We see this more than people realize. Generational abuse patterns. Family members enabling harm. 2 police officers arrived an hour later. They took my statement in a private room, recording everything. Detective Williams was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Her partner, Officer Brooks, looked fresh out of the academy. We went to your apartment, Detective Williams said. Nobody was there. No clothes in the guest room. No sign anyone had been staying with you. Your parents' car is gone from the visitor parking. They ran. The reality settled like stones in my stomach. We've issued a bolo for all 3. Can you provide photos? I scrolled through my phone, finding pictures from Thanksgiving. Natalie smiling beside the turkey she'd insisted on cooking. My parents with Amber between them, everyone looking happy, normal. The perfect family holiday. Send those to this email. Detective Williams handed me a card. Now tell me everything you know about your sister's past. I knew so little. Natalie had always been my parents' favorite. 5 years younger and infinitely more charming. She'd moved around a lot different cities every few years. Portland, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix. She worked retail jobs that never seemed to last. Dated men she never introduced to the family. She was married once, I said slowly. Maybe 10 years ago. I don't remember much about it. It didn't last long. A few months. Do you know her ex-husband's name? James something? She never talked about it. Detective Williams exchanged a look with Officer Brooks. We'll run a thorough background check. The paramedics' tip about the Chen family is being followed up. If your sister was using an alias, we need to know why. They left me with instructions to stay at the hospital. A social worker appeared with paperwork and sympathetic platitudes. I signed forms giving permission for photographs of Amber's injuries to be shared with law enforcement. Around midnight, they moved her to a private room. I sat beside the bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest beneath white blankets. Monitors beeped rhythmically. Someone had cleaned the blood from her hair, revealing a line of stitches above her left ear. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You always were too soft. Maybe next time you'll raise her right. I showed it to the officer stationed outside the door. He called it in immediately, requesting a trace on the number. Jennifer texted asking if I was okay, saying my sudden departure had everyone worried. I couldn't formulate a response that made sense. Sorry, can't make it to the after party. My sister beat my daughter unconscious. Have a great night. I turned off my phone. Sleep came in fitful snatches on the uncomfortable chair. Nurses checked vitals every 2 hours, their soft footsteps and quiet voices oddly comforting. Around 4 a.m., Amber's fingers twitched against mine. Baby, I leaned forward. Amber, can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. The night nurse appeared, checking her pupils again with a small flashlight. Good signs, she murmured. Doctor will be pleased. Dawn filtered through the window blinds, painting everything in shades of gray. My muscles ached from sleeping upright. My evening gown was wrinkled and stained with dried blood. I must have looked like I'd survived my own disaster. Detective Williams returned at 7, bringing coffee and a bag of bagels from the cafeteria. Her expression was grim. We found something. She opened a laptop, turning it toward me. Your sister has 4 different identities in 4 different states. Natalie Porter, Victoria Chen, Rebecca Morrison, Diane Stafford. Same woman, same face, different names. The screen showed driver's licenses, each with my sister's face, but different addresses, ages, even eye colors. In one, she was brunette, in another, a redhead. Each identity had a family situation that ended badly. Detective Williams continued. The Chen family was the case the paramedic remembered. CPS investigation for child abuse before they vanished. She clicked to another file. The Morrison identity was in Denver. Another child abuse report, but Diane Morrison claimed it was the stepfather and that she was protecting the kid. The investigation was dropped when they moved. Detective Williams pulled up more files. Rebecca Stafford in Phoenix. That one's worse. Her boyfriend was arrested for breaking a 10-year-old boy's arm. Rebecca testified against him, played the horrified girlfriend, and got custody of the kid she'd been dating the father for. Where are these children now? I asked, my voice barely audible. Foster care, most of them. Some with relatives. They all tell similar stories. A nice woman moves in or starts dating their parent. Seems wonderful at first, then gradually becomes cruel. Punishments for minor infractions. Isolating the kid from the other parent. If anyone questions it, she disappears and starts over somewhere new. I stared at the screen. My sister's face multiplied across aliases and lies. Why children? That's what the FBI is trying to figure out. We've been in contact with them since 3 a.m. This crosses state lines. Multiple jurisdictions. She closed the laptop. Your parents enabled her, probably helped her move and establish new identities. We're looking into their finances now. I let her into my home, I said, the words choking out. I left my daughter alone with her. You had no reason to suspect, Detective Williams said gently. She's good at what she does. The pattern shows she targets single parents, usually ones with demanding jobs. Detective Williams continued. She offers help, makes herself indispensable, waits until the parent is dependent on her presence. Then the abuse starts always when the parent isn't around. The night I worked late last week, Amber seemed scared when I got home, I said. She said she'd forgotten to do the dishes, and Aunt Natalie got upset. I told her to be more considerate since Natalie was doing us a favor. Don't do that to yourself, Detective Williams said. She's a predator. She knows exactly how to manipulate everyone involved. A nurse stuck her head into the room. Your daughter's waking up. I rushed to the bedside. Amber's eyes opened slowly, unfocused, and confused. She blinked at the white ceiling, the IV in her arm, the monitors surrounding her bed. Mom, her voice came out as a croak. I'm here, baby. You're safe. You're in the hospital. Tears streamed down my face. Is Aunt Natalie here? Panic flooded her expression. She tried to sit up, gasping at the pain. No, honey, no. She's gone. She can't hurt you anymore. Amber collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing with relief. The sound broke something inside me. My 12-year-old daughter had been terrified in her own home, and I'd been blind to it. A pediatric trauma specialist arrived later that morning. Dr. Pamela Winters had gray hair and a gentle manner that immediately put Amber at ease. They talked privately for an hour while I paced the hallway outside Detective Williams, keeping me company. She's asking for you, Dr. Winters said when the door finally opened. Her expression was carefully neutral. Amber sat propped on pillows, looking small and fragile. She twisted the edge of the blanket between her fingers. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, she whispered. Aunt Natalie said if I told anyone, she'd say I was lying to get attention because Dad left. She said Grandma and Grandpa would back her up, that nobody would believe me. Tell me now, everything. I pulled the chair close and took her hand. The story emerged in painful fragments. It started small. Natalie criticizing how Amber ate, how she dressed, how she spoke, suggesting improvements in a friendly way. Then the improvements became demands. Clean your room to Natalie's impossible standards, or lose phone privileges. Do the dishes perfectly, or skip dinner. Complete homework faster, or stand facing the corner for an hour. Grandma and Grandpa visited 2 weeks ago, Amber said. I thought they'd help, but they said Aunt Natalie was teaching me discipline, that I was spoiled because you worked too much and felt guilty. Her voice dropped. Grandma held my arms while Aunt Natalie hit me with a wooden spoon. She said it was for talking back. My vision blurred with rage and tears. Last night, I dropped a glass washing dishes. It slipped because my hands were wet. She touched the bandage on her head. Aunt Natalie got so mad. She grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the counter. Then she dragged me to the door and pushed me out into the hallway. She said I could come back when I learned to be careful. You were unconscious in the hallway for at least 30 minutes before I got home, I said. I remember trying to knock, Amber whispered, but everything got fuzzy. She started crying again. I thought I was going to die out there. Dr. Winters stepped in. That's enough for now. She needs rest. Over the next week, the investigation expanded. The FBI discovered that my parents had been helping Natalie for over a decade. Bank records showed regular transfers of money always after she moved to a new city. Email correspondence revealed they knew about the abuse allegations, dismissing them as lies from ungrateful children and vindictive ex-partners. 3 other families came forward after the story hit local news. Children who had been in Natalie's care, parents who had welcomed her help, all told similar stories. The pattern was undeniable. They caught my parents in North Carolina trying to flee toward the Canadian border. Natalie wasn't with them. She'd vanished somewhere between our apartment and the state line. Linda and George were extradited back to face charges of child endangerment conspiracy and obstruction of justice. I attended their arraignment sitting in the gallery and watching them shuffle in wearing orange jumpsuits. Linda's perfect hair hung limp around her shoulders. George had aged a decade in 2 weeks. Neither would look at me. Their lawyer argued they were elderly confused, manipulated by their troubled daughter. The prosecutor presented years of evidence showing deliberate, calculated assistance in Natalie's crimes. The judge denied bail. Amber came home after 5 days in the hospital. I'd taken a leave of absence from work, much to my boss's frustration. The promotion could wait. Everything could wait. We started therapy together twice a week with Dr. Winters. Amber had nightmares, waking up screaming that someone was in the apartment. I installed new locks, a security system, cameras in every room. It still didn't feel like enough. Jennifer visited bringing flowers and an awkward sympathy card. I'm so sorry. If I'd known if any of us had realized. How could you? I said. I lived with her and missed it. The police came to the office asking questions about your schedule, Jennifer said. How often you worked late if you seemed stressed. She perched on the sofa arm. Everyone feels terrible. We were encouraging you to stay at the party. I'm the one who should have been there. A month passed. Natalie remained at large despite FBI bulletins and media coverage. She'd likely changed her appearance again, assumed a new name, moved to a different region. The FBI agent assigned to the case, Agent Morris, called weekly with updates that never contained actual news. Amber slowly returned to herself. The bruises faded, the stitches came out, the nightmares became less frequent. She started eating normally again, laughing at stupid videos on her phone, talking about school friends. David called for the first time in 6 months after a friend sent him a news article. He was horrified, apologetic, full of explanations about why he'd been absent. I let him talk, then hung up when he suggested Amber come stay with him in California for a while. Like hell, I muttered to the dial tone. In March, 3 months after everything fell apart, I got a call from Agent Morris. We found her. My heart stuttered. Natalie? Natalie had been arrested in Tucson using the name Patricia Walsh. She'd been working at a preschool, dating a single father with a 6-year-old daughter. The school noticed bruises on the child and called authorities. When police arrived, Natalie ran. A fingerprint match confirmed her identity. She'll be extradited here for trial, Agent Morris continued. With the evidence we've gathered across multiple states, she's looking at 20 to 30 years minimum. What about my parents? They took a plea deal. Your mother got 8 years. Your father got 6. They'll serve time in federal prison for their role in enabling interstate crimes. The trial happened in October. I sat in the courtroom every single day, Amber beside me holding my hand. We listened to testimonies from social workers, from children Natalie had abused, from families she destroyed. The evidence was overwhelming. Natalie showed no emotion throughout. She wore conservative dresses and kept her hair neat, playing the role of a normal woman caught in unfortunate circumstances. Her lawyer tried to argue mental illness trauma from her own childhood, a desperate need for control stemming from feeling powerless. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts: child abuse, assault, conspiracy, fraud. The judge sentenced her to 45 years in prison without possibility of parole for 30. Before they led her away, Natalie's eyes found mine across the courtroom. She smiled, just a small curve of her lips there and gone. I smiled back because she'd lost everything, while Amber and I still had each other. Outside the courthouse, news cameras clustered around our lawyer. Attorney Richard Chen, ironically sharing his surname with one of Natalie's aliases, gave a statement about justice and protecting children. I declined to comment, wanting only to go home. Amber started 7th grade that fall. She joined the art club and made friends with a girl named Taylor, who loved horror movies and had a collection of vintage band shirts. Life felt almost normal again, though we both knew it would never be the same kind of normal as before. I got the promotion eventually, though. The shine had worn off. More money was nice, but I negotiated for flexible hours and the ability to work from home 3 days a week. My boss agreed after everything that had happened. We moved to a new apartment across town. A fresh start, no hallway where terrible things had occurred. Amber picked a room and we painted it teal, her favorite color. She hung fairy lights and posters, making the space entirely hers. Some nights I still wake up in a cold sweat, remembering the sight of my daughter crumpled against that door, the blood in her hair, my sister's casual shrug. Those moments are burned into my memory. Permanent scars, invisible to everyone else. But then Amber calls out from her room, asking if I want to watch a movie with her, and the present floods back. She's here. She's safe. We survived. A letter arrived last week from the prison, Natalie requesting to be added to my visitor list. I threw it away without finishing it, then dug it out of the trash and gave it to Agent Morris. Evidence of continued harassment, he said. She'll try to contact you. Manipulators don't stop. They just adapt. I'm ready for it now. The person who'd been blind and trusting died in that hospital waiting room. The woman who emerged is harder, more suspicious, infinitely more protective. Amber flourishes under this new vigilance. Therapy continues, helping her process trauma and rebuild trust. Dr. Winters says she's remarkably resilient. She has a good mother, the doctor told me during one session. That makes all the difference. I'm trying to believe that. The discovery of Natalie's other identities opened a Pandora's box I hadn't anticipated. Agent Morris called me in for a meeting at the FBI field office downtown. He sat across from me in a sterile conference room, files stacked between us like accusations. "We need you to look at something." He opened the first folder revealing photographs of children. Dozens of them, different ages and ethnicities, all with haunted eyes. "These are the victims we've confirmed so far. 11 children across 7 states over 12 years. My hands trembled as I looked through the photos. A boy with a cast on his arm, a girl with a black eye poorly covered with makeup, another child with scars on her forearms. Each face told a story of suffering. "There's more." Agent Morris pulled out another folder. "Your sister kept journals. We found them in a storage unit she rented under the name Victoria Chen." The journals were disturbing beyond comprehension, page after page detailing her methods, her justifications, her satisfaction at breaking down children's spirits. She wrote about finding single parents who were too busy or too guilty to notice. She described manipulating grandparents and other family members to support her. One entry from 2 years ago made me physically ill. "The key is to make them feel like they deserve it. Children are so eager to believe they're the problem. A few weeks of consistent messaging, and then they'll apologize for things that aren't their fault. They'll accept punishment without question. Linda and George understand this. They raised me the same way." I pushed the journal away. "She learned this from my parents." "It appears so. We've been interviewing people who knew your family growing up. Neighbors, teachers, family friends." Agent Morris's expression was carefully neutral. "Multiple people described your mother as controlling and your father as passive. Several mentioned concerns about how your sister was treated, but nobody reported anything official." The puzzle pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Natalie hadn't become a monster. She'd been created as one, then perfected the craft on others. My parents hadn't just enabled her abuse, they taught her how. "What about me?" The question came out small. Why wasn't I like her? Different birth order, different temperament, different reactions to the same environment. You were the older child, the responsible one. You escaped by being perfect controllable. Your sister escaped by learning to control others. He closed the folders. "The psychiatric evaluation suggests she has antisocial personality disorder with sadistic features. She genuinely enjoys causing pain." I left the FBI office feeling hollowed out. Everything I believed about my childhood, my family had been a carefully constructed lie. The happy holidays, the family photos, the appearance of normalcy. All of it had masked something rotten underneath. Dr. Winters helped me process these revelations. "Children don't choose their families," she said. "You survived yours by developing empathy and responsibility. Your sister survived by developing cruelty and manipulation. Neither of you had good options. I brought her into Amber's life. You trusted your sister because that's what we're supposed to do with family. The failure was hers, not yours." Jennifer brought work to the apartment, sometimes helping me stay current during my leave. We'd sit at the kitchen table with laptops and coffee, pretending this was a normal work-from-home arrangement. "The rumor mill at the office has been brutal," she admitted one afternoon. "People asking invasive questions, speculating about your family. HR had to send out a memo about appropriate workplace conversations." Great, I'm the office spectacle now. Actually, no. Most people are horrified. Teresa from accounting started a meal train for you and Amber. Marketing pulled money for gift cards. Everyone wants to help, but doesn't know how. The kindness from colleagues I barely knew outside of meetings surprised me. Casseroles appeared at our door with reheating instructions. Gift certificates to restaurants and grocery stores arrived in my work mailbox. A woman from the legal department whose name I'd never learned sent a huge box of art supplies for Amber with a note. "My niece loves drawing when she's stressed. Hope this helps." These small gestures mattered more than anyone realized. Each one said, "We see you. You're not alone. This wasn't your fault." Amber's school assigned her a counselor, Mrs. Patricia Hammond, who specialized in trauma cases. They met twice a week during lunch period. Amber was resistant at first, insisting she was fine. "It helps to talk to someone who isn't me," I told her. "Someone who has no connection to what happened." "Mrs. Hammond wears these crazy sweaters with cats on them," Amber said after her third session. "Today's had a cat playing piano. It was so dumb it made me laugh." Small victories felt monumental. Amber laughing, Amber sleeping through the night, Amber eating breakfast without me having to cajole her. Each milestone marked progress away from that December night. The preliminary hearing for my parents happened in April. Their lawyer tried to argue they were victims of Natalie's manipulation, elderly people, confused by their daughter's lies. The prosecutor demolished this defense with emails, bank records, and testimony from neighbors who'd heard them discuss helping Natalie start fresh multiple times. One email from my mother to Natalie, dated 3 years prior, read, "That woman in Denver won't stop calling authorities about you. George thinks you should move again. We can wire money for first and last month's rent. Remember to use a different last name this time." They'd known. They'd always known. And they'd helped her escape consequences repeatedly. The judge ordered them held without bail, confirming the earlier arraignment decision. As they were led from the courtroom, my mother finally looked at me. Her expression held no remorse, no shame, only anger that I had destroyed their family by involving authorities. I realized then that she still didn't believe Natalie had done anything wrong. In her mind, the real crime was my betrayal of family loyalty by protecting my daughter. David showed up at our new apartment unannounced in May. I opened the door to find him standing there with flowers and a stuffed animal looking uncomfortable in an expensive suit. "I want to see Amber," he said, "to apologize, to help if I can." He shifted the flowers. "I know I've been absent. I know I failed her, but I'm her father, Cindy. I have rights." Rights. The word tasted bitter. "You haven't called in 6 months. You missed her birthday. You forgot Christmas. But now that she's been traumatized and it's all over the news, suddenly you're Father of the Year. That's not fair." "You're right. What's not fair is explaining to our daughter why her father disappeared when he got a new wife. What's not fair is her learning to expect nothing from you so she won't be disappointed." I started closing the door. "Come back when you've actually been present for more than a week." "I'm getting a lawyer." His voice turned cold. "I'm filing for partial custody." "Go ahead. Explain to a judge why you've contributed nothing to her life for 3 years, then suddenly want custody after she's been abused. Explain your 6 months of silence after her hospitalization. I'm sure that'll go well." I slammed the door. Amber appeared in the hallway, having heard everything. "I don't want to see him," she said quietly. "I don't want to visit California and pretend we're a happy family. He left us." "I know, baby. He won't force you, I promise." David's lawyer did contact my lawyer. Richard Chen responded with a detailed timeline of David's absence, his failure to pay child support on time, and his lack of involvement in Amber's medical crisis. The custody threat evaporated after one phone call. David sent a check for $5,000 and a note saying he'd respect Amber's space, money instead of presents. Typical. Summer arrived bringing humidity and the promise of long days with no school schedule. Amber and I established new routines. Morning walks around our neighborhood, afternoons at the library or the art museum, evenings cooking dinner together, experimenting with recipes that sometimes worked and often didn't. Taylor came over frequently. She was a good influence, funny and creative without being wild. They'd spend hours in Amber's room drawing or watching videos, their laughter filtering through the apartment like music. "Taylor's mom wants to meet you," Amber mentioned one evening. "She keeps saying she should introduce herself since we're always together." "That's nice. Invite them for dinner this weekend." Catherine Morris turned out to be a physical therapist with red hair and an easy laugh. She arrived with wine and stories about Taylor's dramatic streak. "She's wanted to be a director since she was 6, Catherine explained. Watching the girls through the kitchen doorway as they debated camera angles for some video project. Everything's a production with her. Getting dressed for school becomes a costume design challenge. Amber's been so much lighter since they became friends." "Taylor told me what happened," Catherine said quietly. "Not the details, just that Amber had been through something hard. For what it's worth, your daughter is resilient and kind. You've done something right." We became friends, Catherine and I. She understood single parenting struggles having divorced Taylor's father 5 years ago. We commiserated about custody arrangements and work-life balance over coffee, while our daughters plotted creative projects. "Sometimes I worry I'm too protective now," I admitted during one of our morning walks. "I check on Amber constantly. I panic if she's 5 minutes late texting back." I know it's not healthy. You're healing too, Catherine said, adjusting her sunglasses. Give yourself time. Trauma doesn't disappear overnight. You're allowed to be hypervigilant for a while. Agent Morris called in July with news that Natalie's trial date was set for October. The prosecution is confident, he said. We have evidence from multiple jurisdictions, testimony from numerous victims, her own journals. She'll be convicted. What if she's not? Then we retry her in another state. We have enough charges to keep her in prison for life several times over. She's not getting out. The certainty in his voice helped quiet some of my anxiety. Natalie would face justice. My parents would face justice. The system was working slowly but surely. Amber started reading again, something she'd stopped after that December night. She devoured fantasy novels, losing herself in magical worlds where good triumphed and heroes saved the day. I like stories where kids are powerful, she explained when I asked about her reading choices, where they fight back and win. You fought back, I said. You survived. I guess it doesn't feel like winning, she said thoughtfully. It feels like I just didn't die. Dr. Winters explained this was normal. Survivors often struggled to see their survival as victory when they still carried trauma. Healing is her win, the doctor told me. Every day she processes more, grows stronger, reclaims herself. That's the triumph. On the anniversary of that December night, Amber and I baked cookies together in our new kitchen. We didn't discuss what we were marking, but we both knew. 1 year since everything shattered, and then slowly began rebuilding. Mom, Amber said, looking up from decorating a sugar cookie with purple icing, I'm glad you came home when you did. Me too, baby. Even though everything was terrible and scary, at least now I know you'll always believe me. You'll always protect me. I pulled her into a hug, careful of her still healing ribs and spirit. Always, forever, no matter what. We ate cookies and watched a ridiculous comedy, laughing at stupid jokes and throwing popcorn at the television. Just a regular Friday night for a mother and daughter who'd survived and held together. My phone buzzed with the news alert. Another case had been linked to Natalie's crimes, a family in Texas from 8 years ago. The FBI was reopening the investigation. More victims, more evidence, more years potentially added to her sentence. I deleted the alert without reading the full article. That chapter of our lives was closed. Natalie was behind bars. My parents were paying for their complicity, and Amber was safe in our home, decorated with her artwork and filled with her laughter. 2 weeks after paying off my 2024 BMW, I came home to an empty driveway. I called my dad in a panic. He laughed and said, We gave it to your sister. You're single. She's got a baby on the way. She doesn't have a license. I didn't argue. I filed a police report instead. The sense of accomplishment I felt when I made that final car payment was indescribable. 5 years of careful budgeting, overtime, shifts at the hospital, and saying no to countless dinners and trips had finally paid off. My 2024 BMW wasn't just a car. It was proof that at 31 years old, I could set a goal and achieve it completely on my own. I remember the day I drove it off the lot like it was yesterday. My younger sister, Ashley, had rolled her eyes when I showed her the photos, making some comment about how impractical sports sedans were. My mother, Denise, had pursed her lips and asked if I really needed something so expensive. Only my father, Lawrence, had seemed genuinely happy for me, though looking back now, I wonder if even that was genuine. The evening, everything fell apart, started like any other Tuesday. I finished my shift in the cardiac unit at Providence General Hospital, changed out of my scrubs, and headed to the parking garage. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend Brittany, asking if I wanted to grab drinks, but I was exhausted and just wanted to get home to my apartment. Traffic was lighter than usual. As I made my way through downtown Portland, I stopped at my favorite Thai place and picked up Pad Thai EU for dinner. The autumn air had that crisp quality that always made me feel alive. Everything seemed perfectly normal. My apartment complex has assigned parking spots, and mine was always right near the entrance. As I pulled into the lot, I noticed the empty space immediately. At first, I thought maybe I was confused about where I parked that morning. Sometimes when you're running on 6 hours of sleep after a double shift, your brain plays tricks on you. I circled the entire parking lot twice. My heart started pounding as the reality sank in. My car was gone. Someone had stolen my car. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. The dispatcher was calm and professional as she took down my information. She said an officer would be there within the hour to take a report. I stood there in the cooling evening air, clutching my takeout bag and feeling violated in a way I'd never experienced before. Then I thought to call my father. He'd help me research security features when I bought the car. Maybe he'd have some advice about tracking systems or insurance claims. "Hey, sweetheart," he answered on the third ring. I could hear the television in the background, some football game probably. "Dad, someone stole my car," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I just got home and it's gone. I already called the police, but I don't know what to do." There was a pause, then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Nobody stole your car, honey. We gave it to Ashley. She needs it more than you do." For several seconds, I couldn't process the words. They didn't make sense strung together in that order. "What do you mean you gave it to Ashley?" "Your mother and I talked about it. Ashley's got the baby coming in 4 months and she needs reliable transportation. You're single. You live close to the hospital. You could walk to work if you needed to. It just makes more sense for her to have it." My brain was trying to catch up with what I was hearing. "Dad, that's my car. I just paid it off 2 weeks ago. You can't just give away my car." "Don't be dramatic," he said, and I could hear my mother saying something in the background. "We're a family. Family helps each other out. Ashley and Brett can't afford a new car right now with a baby coming." "Ashley doesn't even have a driver's license," I said. "She lost it 3 years ago, after her second drunk driving charge." "She's been sober for 18 months, my father countered. "And Brett can drive it. They need a reliable vehicle." I felt like I was in some kind of surreal nightmare. "How did you even get my car?" "Your mother has your spare key, remember? From when you had that medical conference last year and needed someone to move it for street cleaning." I had given my mother that spare key in good faith, never imagining she would use it for something like this. The betrayal cut deeper than the theft itself. "That doesn't give you the right to take my property," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "I need you to tell Ashley to bring it back right now." My father's tone shifted, becoming harder. "Listen, your sister is about to be a mother. She has responsibilities now. You spend all your money on yourself anyway. Fancy apartment, expensive car. It won't hurt you to make the sacrifice. I worked for 5 years to pay for that car. Every single payment came from my paychecks." "And your mother and I paid for your college education," he shot back. "Or did you forget about that?" "We never asked for a dime back. The least you can do is help your sister when she needs it." The logic was so twisted I almost couldn't formulate a response. "You gave me a gift, and now you're using it as justification for stealing from me." "Watch your tone," he said sharply. "We didn't steal anything. We're reallocating family resources. Ashley needs that car more than you do. End of discussion." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding my phone, my dinner growing cold in its plastic bag. A sedan pulled into the lot, and a uniformed police officer stepped out. Officer Martinez was in her 40s with kind eyes that had probably seen too much. She took down all the information: make, model, license plate, VIN number. When she asked if I had any idea who might have taken it, I hesitated for just a moment before telling her the truth. My parents gave my spare key to my sister without my permission. They claimed they had the right to give her my car. Officer Martinez's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "And do you want to press charges?" This was the moment where everything could change. If I said yes, I would be setting something in motion that couldn't be undone. My family would never forgive me. Holiday dinners would be awkward or non-existent. My mother would probably stop speaking to me entirely. But they had stolen my car. There was no other word for it. "Yes," I said, "I want to press charges." She nodded and made notes in her report. "We'll need to classify this as theft of a motor vehicle. Given that you know who has it and where they likely are, we can probably resolve this quickly. Do you know your sister's current address?" I gave her Ashley's address, the house she shared with her boyfriend Brett on the other side of town. Officer Martinez said she'd follow up and be in touch. As she drove away, I finally went up to my apartment. The Pad Psi EU had gone completely cold, but I ate it anyway, sitting at my small kitchen table and trying to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. First my mother, then Ashley, then my father again. I didn't answer any of them. The voicemails were predictable. My mother calling me selfish and ungrateful, Ashley crying and saying she couldn't believe I'd call the police on my own family. My father demanding I call off the report immediately or face consequences. I blocked all 3 numbers and tried to sleep. The next morning, Officer Martinez called to inform me that my vehicle had been located at Ashley's residence. My sister had been cited for possession of a stolen vehicle, and the car would be released back to me once I came down to provide documentation of ownership. Your sister claimed your parents had given her the car as a gift, Officer Martinez said, but the title is in your name alone, and you made the report so legally, it's straightforward. I took a personal day from work and went to retrieve my car. Ashley and Brett's house looked exactly the same as the last time I visited for an awkward birthday dinner 6 months ago. My BMW was parked in their driveway like it belonged there. Ashley came storming out as I approached with Officer Martinez, 5 months pregnant and furious. She looked like she wanted to attack me. "You're insane!" she screamed. "Mom and Dad gave me this car. They had every right to do that." "They gave you my car that I own," I corrected. "That's called theft." "It's called being part of a family," she shot back. "But you've always been selfish. Everything has to be about you." Officer Martinez stepped between us. "Ma'am, the vehicle belongs to her. The title is in her name. Your parents had no legal authority to give it away." "This is ridiculous," Brett said from the doorway. He'd gained weight since I'd last seen him, and he looked exhausted. "We were told the car was ours. We didn't steal anything." "You accepted stolen property," I said coldly. "You could have asked to see the title. You could have questioned why my parents would give away my car without talking to me." Ashley's face crumbled and she started crying. "We needed this. We can't afford a safe car for the baby. Brett's truck is falling apart." For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered my father's laughter on the phone. My mother's spare key turned weapon. The complete disregard for 5 years of my hard work and sacrifice. "That's not my problem," I said. "Get a job, save money, do what the rest of us do, instead of expecting handouts." I took my keys from Officer Martinez and got in my car. It smelled like Brett's cologne, and there were fast food wrappers in the back seat. Ashley's prenatal vitamins were in the cup holder. They'd already started treating it like it was theirs. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal. I kept expecting someone to call and tell me this was all a misunderstanding, but my phone stayed silent. When I got home, I spent an hour cleaning out the car. Every trace of Ashley and Brett had to go. The fast food wrappers, a hair tie on the gear shift receipts from gas stations I'd never been to. Finding a pacifier wedged between the seats felt like a punch to the stomach. They'd been planning for this baby to ride in my car. They'd already imagined their future with my property. I documented everything with photos. Gregory had told me to keep records, and I was taking that advice seriously. Each piece of trash went into a plastic bag that I dated and labeled. It felt excessive, but I'd learned that excessive preparation was better than being caught off guard. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, knocked on my door that evening. She was 70-something and had lived in the building for decades. We weren't close, but we chatted occasionally when getting mail. "I saw your car was missing yesterday," she said. "Then I saw the police here. Everything all right?" I gave her the basics, watching her expression shift from concern to outrage. "Your own parents," she said, shaking her head. "In my day, family meant you could trust people, not that they could rob you blind." Her words stuck with me. That's exactly what had happened. I'd been robbed by the people I should have been able to trust most. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's laugh, that casual dismissal of my panic, like my distress was amusing rather than valid. I'd never heard him laugh at Ashley's problems. When she'd gotten her second drunk driving charge, he'd been angry and disappointed, sure, but he'd never laughed. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and made tea. Sitting at my kitchen table, I started writing down every instance I could remember of being treated as less important than Ashley. The list grew longer than I expected. When Ashley dropped out of community college after 1 semester, our parents had consoled her and said education wasn't for everyone. When I struggled with organic chemistry, my father had told me to work harder because nursing school wasn't going to get easier. When Ashley got fired from her retail job for showing up late repeatedly, my mother had blamed the manager for being inflexible. When I'd asked to borrow their car once because mine was in the shop, my father had lectured me about planning better. The pattern was so clear when laid out like this. Ashley was protected from consequences. I was expected to handle everything myself. And when I succeeded when I bought a car, I was proud of it, became something they could give away to her. By dawn, I had 5 pages of notes. The tea had gone cold hours ago, but I felt something I hadn't felt since finding my empty parking spot. Clarity. It took 3 days for the rest of the family to get involved. My Aunt Suzanne called, trying to mediate. She'd always been the peacekeeper, smoothing over arguments at Thanksgiving and Christmas. But even she seemed to think I was being unreasonable. "Your sister is pregnant," she said gently. "Can't you just let this go for the sake of family unity?" "Family unity is a two-way street," I replied. "Where was family unity when my parents stole my car?" "They didn't steal it. They just redistributed resources. You have to understand, Ashley and Brett are in a tough spot financially. So am I. I'm a single woman living in an expensive city on a nurse's salary. I worked overtime for 5 years to pay off that car." "But you don't have a baby on the way." The implication was clear. My needs and accomplishments mattered less because I hadn't gotten pregnant. Never mind that Ashley had been barely employed for most of her 20s, drifting from part-time job to part-time job. Never mind that she'd made choices that led to losing her license. Because she was having a baby, she deserved my property. "I'm done with this conversation," I told Suzanne. "If anyone in this family wants to talk to me, they can start with an apology." I hung up and blocked her. Work became my sanctuary. At the hospital, things made sense. Patients needed care. I provided it. Insurance companies tried to deny coverage. I fought them. There were rules and procedures and a basic sense of right and wrong that apparently didn't exist in my family. My coworker Madison noticed I was distracted during a shift about a week after I got my car back. "Everything okay?" she asked as we charted medications in the nurse's station. I gave her the abbreviated version. Her eyes grew wider with each sentence. "They just took your car, like drove it away, while you were at work. Apparently, family loyalty means I'm not entitled to property rights." Madison shook her head in disbelief. "My cousin tried something similar with my grandmother's jewelry after she died. Claimed Grandma had promised it to her. We had to get lawyers involved." "Did it work out?" "Eventually, but half the family stopped speaking to us. Said we were being greedy and disrespectful." She paused. "Worth it, though. Some people will take everything you have if you let them." Her words stuck with me. Some people will take everything you have if you let them. 2 weeks after retrieving my car, I received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer representing my parents. They were threatening to sue me for emotional distress and defamation. Apparently, Ashley had been so upset by my actions that she'd been put on bed rest by her doctor, and they held me responsible. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I called an attorney of my own. Gregory Whitman was a family law specialist recommended by Madison's cousin. His office was in a sleek downtown building with a view of the river. He read through my parents' letter with an expression that never changed. "Do they have any legitimate claim?" I asked. "None whatsoever," he said. "This is an intimidation tactic. They're hoping you'll back down rather than face legal action." "Can they actually sue me for emotional distress?" "They can try, but they won't win. You filed a legitimate police report about your stolen vehicle. That's not defamation. It's factual. As for emotional distress, they'd have to prove you acted with malicious intent rather than simply protecting your property rights." He set the letter aside and looked at me directly. "The question is what you want to do now. We can send a response telling them to pound sand, or we can go on the offensive." "What does offensive look like?" "You could file a civil suit for conversion, the unlawful taking of your property. Even though you got the car back, you suffered damages, stress time off work, legal fees. You could also pursue charges against your parents for theft, though the DA would have to decide whether to prosecute." The thought of suing my own parents made me feel sick, but the thought of letting them intimidate me felt worse. "Let's start with a response letter," I said. "Make it clear I won't be pushed around." Gregory nodded and made notes. "I'll draft something today. In the meantime, document everything. Save all voicemails, texts, emails. If anyone in your family makes threats or admits to taking the car, keep records." I left his office feeling slightly more in control. At least I had someone on my side who understood that ownership actually meant something. Over the next few days, I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in family dynamics and boundary issues. Her office was calming all soft grays and plants with a view of a small garden. "Tell me about your family," she said during our first session. I started with the car, but she pushed me to go deeper. We talked about my childhood, about always being the responsible one, about how I'd learned that love was conditional on being useful. "You were parentified," Dr. Chen said. "You learned early that your worth came from taking care of others and not causing problems. That's a heavy burden for a child." I hadn't thought about it that way before, but she was right. When Ashley struggled, I was expected to be understanding. When I struggled, I was told to figure it out. What happens if you disappoint them? She asked. The question made my chest tight. I don't know. I've never really tried. You're trying now, she pointed out. By filing that police report, by refusing to just let this go. How does that feel? Terrifying, I admitted, but also kind of powerful. She smiled. That's growth. Scary and empowering often go together. Our sessions became a weekly anchor. Dr. Chen helped me see patterns I'd been blind to, helped me understand that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. The response letter was delivered within 48 hours. Gregory had crafted something that was simultaneously professional and devastating. It outlined the facts of the case, cited the relevant laws, and made clear that any further harassment would result in additional legal action. My phone exploded with angry messages from family members I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, my parents had been telling everyone their version of events, painting me as a vindictive daughter who'd call the police on her pregnant sister over a simple misunderstanding. Only my grandmother reached out with something approaching neutrality. Phyllis was 83 and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone, including her own children. Tell me what actually happened, she said when I answered her call. I explained everything: the missing car, my father's laughter, the police report, the cease and desist letter. She listened without interrupting. Your parents are being fools, she said finally. Lawrence always did spoil Ashley. Denise enables it. They're threatening to sue me, Grandma. Let them try. I'll testify on your behalf if it comes to that. She paused. You did the right thing. Nobody has the right to take what you've worked for, family or not. Hearing those words from her made something loosen in my chest. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone in my family to acknowledge that I wasn't crazy. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me. Just don't back down. Bullies only stop when you stop letting them push you around. Her support meant everything, but it also made me realize how isolated I'd become from my family. Growing up, we'd had Sunday dinners every week, birthday parties, holiday traditions. Now I was on the outside looking in, and part of me grieved for what I'd lost, even as I knew I'd made the right choice. Work continued to be my refuge, but the emotional toll was starting to show. I snapped at a resident who was moving too slowly during rounds. I forgot to return a patient's call. Small mistakes that weren't like me. My supervisor, Karen, pulled me aside after a particularly rough shift. She was in her 50s, a veteran nurse who'd seen it all. What's going on? She asked directly. You're not yourself. I broke down and told her everything. She listened without judgment, then said something I didn't expect. My brother stole my identity once, opened credit cards in my name, destroyed my credit score. She paused. He was family, and everyone said I should just work it out privately. But I pressed charges. He went to jail for 6 months. Half my family stopped talking to me. Do you regret it? I asked. Not even a little bit. My credit recovered, and I learned I deserved better than being victimized by people who claimed to love me. She squeezed my shoulder. The family members who abandoned me weren't worth keeping anyway. The ones who stayed are the ones who actually matter. These small moments of validation from people outside my family kept me going. They saw clearly what my family refused to acknowledge. What happened to me was wrong. Full stop. Halloween came and went. Thanksgiving approached. My mother sent a formal email informing me I was no longer welcome at family gatherings until I apologized to Ashley and dropped any potential legal action. I spent Thanksgiving with Madison and her partner at their house in the suburbs. Their family was loud and chaotic and warm, and nobody stole anyone's car. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Ashley gave birth to a daughter on December 8th. My mother sent a mass email with photos and the baby's name, Kennedy Marie. She was beautiful, tiny, and perfect. The email didn't include me in the recipient list. I only saw it because Suzanne forwarded it before remembering we weren't speaking. I felt a complicated mix of emotions looking at those photos. Happiness for the baby who hadn't asked to be born into this mess. Sadness that I'd probably never meet my niece. Anger that my family had created this situation and somehow still blamed me for it. Christmas was quiet. I worked a shift at the hospital and then went home to my apartment. My grandmother sent me a check with a note that said, "Don't let them wear you down." In January, Ashley's boyfriend Brett reached out. He sent a text from an unknown number asking if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my apartment. Before the meeting, I called Gregory to let him know. He advised me to record the conversation if it was legal in my state and to be careful about making any agreements or promises. Don't let him manipulate you emotionally, Gregory warned. He might seem sympathetic, but he's still the person who was driving your car around town. I kept that in mind as I walked to the coffee shop. The place was busy with the lunch crowd, which made me feel safer. Public meetings were always better for these kinds of conversations. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes, the exhausted appearance of a new parent who wasn't getting any sleep. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as we sat down with our coffees. "What do you want, Brett?" He rubbed his face with both hands. I wanted to apologize for my part in all this. I should have questioned where the car came from. I should have insisted on seeing paperwork. Ashley's family said they wanted to give us this gift, and I didn't look too closely because we needed it so badly. You could have asked me directly. I know, I'm sorry. He looked genuinely miserable. For what it's worth, I told Ashley from the beginning that something felt off about the whole thing, but her parents insisted it was fine and she believed them. How is she? Overwhelmed. Scared. The baby has colic and nobody's sleeping. My truck died last week and we can't afford to fix it. Her parents haven't helped at all since she gave birth. He laughed bitterly. Guess their generosity only extends to giving away other people's property. Despite everything, I felt a small pang of sympathy. "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said, "but that still doesn't justify what happened." "I know. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in Ashley's life thinks you're the villain here." He finished his coffee and stood up. "Take care of yourself." After he left, I sat there for a while, thinking about consequences. My parents had created this situation with their entitlement and favoritism. Now everyone was dealing with the fallout. In March, I got a call from Officer Martinez. There had been developments in the case. "Your sister's boyfriend has come forward with additional information," she said. "Apparently your father explicitly told him that you had agreed to give them the car, but were too shy to do it directly, so he was facilitating the transfer. We might have grounds for fraud charges." My stomach twisted. What does that mean? It means your father deliberately misrepresented the situation to obtain your property. That's a crime. The DA's office is reviewing the case. I thought about my father facing criminal charges about Ashley dealing with a new baby, while her parents potentially face legal consequences about the complete implosion of my family. What happens if the DA decides to prosecute? Your father would face charges, possibly your mother as well, depending on her involvement. They'd likely offer a plea deal for a first offense, but there would be consequences. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat on my couch and thought about what I really wanted: revenge, justice, an apology, all of the above. 3 days later, my father called from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I have nothing to say to you. The police are talking about pressing charges. This is getting out of hand. This got out of hand when you stole my car and laughed about it." There was a long silence. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with a police report. I thought you'd be angry for a few days and then let it go." "You thought wrong. Your sister is struggling. The baby has health issues. Brett lost his job. They're about to lose their house." His voice cracked slightly. "Please, can't we work this out as a family?" "You made it clear I'm not really part of this family," I said. "I'm just the resource you pull from when Ashley needs something." "That's not fair." "Fair." I almost laughed. "You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how I worked doubles and overtime for 5 years while Ashley partied and made bad decisions. Let's talk about how I paid off my car 2 weeks before you stole it. Let's talk about how you've never once acknowledged my accomplishments, but constantly make excuses for Ashley's failures. She's your sister, and I'm your daughter, or at least I thought I was." Another long silence. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Name it. I'll make it happen." "I want you to admit that you stole my car, not reallocated family resources, not facilitated a gift. Stole. I want you to admit that you had no right to give away my property, and I want you to explain to the entire family what you did and apologize publicly." "You're asking me to humiliate myself." "I'm asking you to tell the truth. If that's humiliating, maybe that tells you something about your actions." He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. "And if I do this," he said finally, "you'll drop everything. Talk to the DA. Make this go away." "I'll consider it." "That's not good enough. It's all I've got right now. You destroyed my trust. You don't get to make demands about how I rebuild it." He hung up without another word. On Easter Sunday, I received an email from my father. It was addressed to the entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. The email was 3 paragraphs long. In careful formal language, he admitted that he and my mother had taken my car without my permission or knowledge. He acknowledged that they had no legal right to give it away. He apologized for his actions and for the way he dismissed my feelings when confronted. It wasn't everything I wanted. There was no explanation of why he'd done it, no acknowledgement of the pattern of favoritism, but it was something. I forwarded the email to Gregory Whitman and asked his opinion. "It's a start," he said. "If you want to pursue the DA about dropping charges, this email shows accountability, but you're under no obligation to do anything." I thought about Ashley's baby with health issues, about Brett trying to provide for his family, about my parents getting older and facing the consequences of their choices. Then I thought about myself at 26, taking extra shifts and eating ramen to make car payments, about the pride I felt making that final payment, about the violation of coming home to an empty driveway. "Let me think about it," I told Gregory. That weekend, my grandmother invited me to her house for dinner. When I arrived, my parents were there. "Before you leave, Grandma," Phyllis said firmly, "everyone is going to sit down and have a civil conversation like adults." My mother looked like she'd been crying for days. My father couldn't meet my eyes. We sat at Phyllis's dining room table in uncomfortable silence. "Lawrence and Denise are going to speak now," Phyllis said, "and you're going to listen without interrupting." My father cleared his throat. I was wrong. Everything I did was wrong. I let my concern for Ashley blind me to the fact that I was stealing from you. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. My mother finally looked at me. I gave them the key. I helped plan when to take it. I told myself we were helping family, but the truth is we were stealing from our own daughter because it was easier than telling Ashley no. Why? The question came out smaller than I intended. Why am I always the one expected to sacrifice? Why does Ashley's life matter more than mine? "It doesn't," my mother said, her voice breaking. "But she's always needed more help. And somewhere along the way, we started thinking that was just how things were supposed to be. You were strong and independent, so we leaned on you. We took advantage of your strength." "You took advantage of my love for you," I corrected. "You knew I'd do anything for family, so you kept asking for more." My father nodded slowly. "You're right, and I'm sorry. I don't know how to make this right, but I want to try." We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't comfortable or easy. There were tears and raised voices and moments where I almost walked out, but by the end, something had shifted slightly. I didn't forgive them, not completely. Forgiveness takes time and requires changed behavior, not just words. But I agreed to talk to the DA's office about the possibility of dropping the charges in exchange for restitution and counseling. My parents agreed to pay for all my legal fees and attend family therapy sessions with me. Ashley and Brett were not invited to these sessions, at least not initially. This needed to be about my relationship with my parents before we could address the larger family dynamic. The DA agreed to drop the charges when presented with my father's written confession and evidence of restitution. Officer Martinez seemed pleased with the resolution. "Not every case like this works out," she told me during our final conversation. "Most families just sweep it under the rug. Good for you for standing your ground." Therapy was harder than I expected. My parents had to confront patterns that went back to Ashley's childhood, the way they'd excused her behavior, compensated for her poor choices, and expected me to be understanding because I was more capable. I had to confront my own patterns saying yes, when I meant no sacrificing my needs to keep the peace, measuring my worth by how useful I was to others. In June, Ashley sent me a letter handwritten on floral stationery. It was surprisingly honest. She admitted she'd always been jealous of me. I made things look easy when they felt impossible to her. I had my life together while hers was constantly falling apart. When our parents offered her my car, she convinced herself I owed her that after years of being the perfect daughter. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said she understood now that she'd been wrong, and she hoped someday we might be able to rebuild our relationship. I kept the letter, but didn't respond right away. Some wounds need time to heal before you can think about reconciliation. By September, my relationship with my parents had evolved into something different than it was before. More honest, maybe. More bounded, definitely. I saw them once a month for dinner, and we were all careful not to discuss Ashley unless I brought her up first. My grandmother remained my biggest supporter. She told me repeatedly how proud she was that I'd stood up for myself. Your grandfather always said, "The mark of character is what you do when people try to take advantage of you," she said. "You've got character, sweetheart." I still drive my BMW. Sometimes I remember coming home to that empty driveway and feel angry all over again. Other times I'm just grateful I learned the lesson before they tried to take something even more important. Family is complicated. Love doesn't give people the right to your possessions or your peace of mind. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries and enforce them, even when it hurts. Ashley and I have exchanged a few emails. We're not close and we may never be again, but she included me in a group text when Kennedy took her first steps, and I sent a gift card without overthinking it. Brett and I occasionally grab coffee. He got a new job in construction, and they've stabilized financially. He's never again made excuses for what happened, which I appreciate. The legal documents from that period are filed away in a drawer in my apartment. Sometimes I look at them and remember how close I came to just letting it go to keep the peace. How much I would have lost if I'd chosen temporary comfort over standing up for myself. My coworker Madison asked me recently if I thought it was worth it, all the conflict and pain and family drama. I thought about it for a moment before answering. My car is still in my driveway. My family knows they can't walk all over me, and I learned I'm stronger than I thought I was. Yeah, I said, it was worth it. She nodded, understanding. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. The autumn air has that same crisp quality it did the night I came home to find my car missing. But now, when I park in my assigned spot and walk up to my apartment, I don't feel violated. I feel proud. I paid for that car. I earned it. And when someone tried to take it away, I fought back. Some people will take everything you have if you let them, but I didn't let them. And that makes all the difference.